Well, you know what? That's the one thing I didn't do this morning was change that banner. It's September 23rd. It is 5:27 a.m. Yeah. Something woke me up around 4:45 and said, hey, you may want to check what's going on in the tropics, and I did, and we now have a tropical depression, number 9. Not a surprise there, that not unexpected at all. So let's talk about what this means to South Florida. First off, let me show you the advisory, and you can see as well on the bottom of the screen there the new text from the advisory, Tropical Depression 9, number 1. And that's the location there. It is about 615 miles to the east-southeast of Kingston, Jamaica, and it is moving to the west-northwest at 13 miles an hour. So it's moving kind of at a medium speed there. But what we're concerned, of course, with is the future track for the intensity as well as the cone there. So it is forecast by later today to become a tropical storm, and it looks like that would be Hermine. So I know it's spelled, sometimes people say, is it Hermine? No, it's Hermine. Hermine. So here's our 1 p.m. position there on Friday. That is Friday night. There is Saturday morning and Saturday night, and then Sunday morning. Now, we talked yesterday about we're really going to need to use kind of Jamaica as our reference point here for is it close to Jamaica or is it farther south to Jamaica, because that might be an indication of how close it gets to South Florida. This yellow area here, so now this is kind of, and you'll see as we go forward here into time, the yellow area is an enhancement that I put on the National Hurricane Center's cone. You can see the cone outline there. It's that little white area, but this is from the National Hurricane Center. It's information derived from their advisories, and that yellow area indicates a pretty good chance for tropical storm conditions. The reason that I show this is because what happens is that as the storm gets closer to you, the cone gets smaller because the cone is only tracked where the center is expected to be, and you want to know where the effects of the storm are, right? So that's one of the things that I add on here, and you'll be able to see as we go forward into time here how that plays out. So Jamaica basically potentially under the threat for tropical storm conditions. Now, it's still far enough away that no watches or warnings are in effect, but tropical storm watches will likely be issued eventually, and then probably if the storm gets close enough, tropical storm warnings. Now, here are the Cayman Islands, Grand Cayman's there, and Cayman Brac is there, and this is the Cayman Island folks. You folks need to start preparing right away, because the storm is going to be on you by Sunday night, most likely into Monday there. So we'll likely see tropical storm watches, if not hurricane watches, issued for the Cayman Islands there, because the forecast is by Monday for hurricane intensity. That's Sunday night into Monday morning. And then as we go forward here, you can see there is Monday night into Tuesday morning, and this is the Tuesday night into Wednesday morning position. So the first takeaway right away is that all of South Florida is in the cone. And when I say all of South Florida, I mean Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, the Keys, Collier, all the way up. I mean, basically the southern and central half of the peninsula are in the cone based on this initial advisory here. And so what we kind of want to know is, well, where is the worst of it going to be based on this advisory, and what should we start doing, because now we're really on a 5-day time thing here. Yesterday, of course, we talked about what's our timeline, what's our clock, and how that would be really literally set by what happens when we finally get an advisory. So now we have advisories. So there's a threat for hurricane conditions across about the western third of Cuba. That would be in the Monday night time frame. And then in the Tuesday time frame, it's into South Florida as well as Tuesday night there. And this once again, this includes the Keys. Right now, the lower Keys are closest to the track center, and that's where the hurricane conditions are possible. And then the rest of South Florida, you can see here, is in that yellow area, in fact, up to the Tampa Bay area, and that is where tropical storm conditions are possible. Now, we're still a ways away from tropical storm warnings or watches or anything like that for South Florida. We're 5 days away. The watches come out when we are 2 days away, 48 hours from that. So let's kind of break down here what we are doing now, because now literally we have started the clock. Now that we have advisories, we're at 5 days out. So what does that mean to us? And of course, That's right. The clock is ticking. So now we need to start thinking about what we're doing and starting to do things. So on the 5-day clock, we really need to start thinking about our preparations and what they're going to be going forward. And at day 5, we're going to be doing this now for the next several days. It's called What Should We Be Doing Now? And what we should be doing now is make sure we have a hurricane plan. The most important thing about the hurricane plan is that, do you live in an evacuation zone? Because if you do live in an evacuation zone, and this is for all of South Florida, this is for the Keys, this is for the Southwest Coast, Fort Myers, Tampa Bay, as well as Miami-Dade, Broward, on up through Palm Beach, on up through all the way up through Martin and St. Lucie counties, and up the East Coast, up to the Space Coast. Everybody needs to know, do you live in an evacuation zone? Because we evacuate for water, and we basically hide from the wind. We stay in place unless we're in a mobile home or we have special needs or things like that. We stay in place, and especially this goes for Miami-Dade and Broward. If your home is a newer home, it is built to withstand at least up to Category 3 hurricanes, and it's the best place to be. I know during Irma we had a lot of folks going over to the West Coast to just come back to the East Coast because the track shifted. This probably will be one of these cases where, because the models have been shifting so much, that the track is also going to shift. So don't focus too closely right now at 5 days where that 5-day point is. Don't focus too closely. Are we in the cone? Are we out of the cone? We are close enough, and in this case right now we are in the cone, where we're not focusing on are we in or out of the cone. Do we have special needs? If we have special needs, then we might have to have a different hurricane plan than just staying in place. If you have an extended power outage and you have an oxygen machine, you may need to find different accommodations, or you may need to leave. Do you have a communications plan? That means letting friends and family nearby know what's going on with you, and letting folks out of town know what's going on with you as well. Do we have food, water, and medicine for 5 days? And I see folks chiming in now in the chat. Good morning to you, and thankfully we have a weekend ahead to do lots of work outside and inside and whatever needs to be done. We've got a little bit of window here. So do we have food, water, and medicine to last 5 days? It used to be they'd say 1 gallon per person per day for 3 days. You know what? It's better just to have 5 gallons per person. That way it's kind of easy, right? And it doesn't have to be bottled water from the store, but you need the equivalent of 5 gallons per person in your house on hand. And folks are, well, why do we need water? Things like that. Well, the reason you need water is because when there's an extended power outage, sometimes the pump stations and things like that, the water pressure drops, and whenever the water pressure drops, you have the possibility of infiltration into the water system, and so you don't want to be drinking that water if it potentially has been infiltrated by bacteria or who knows what. The water systems are kept at a certain pressure to kind of keep, if there's any leaks, nothing bad comes into the water system. So that's why we do the water. Now, food and medicine, we say you should have about a 2-week supply. And what we're planning for here, and I kind of want to really stress this point, what we're planning here is not for when the hurricane happens, if it happens here, it's for after the storm. That's what we're getting ready for. We're getting, we will plan for a few things for during the storm, but it's really after the storm when you may not be able to get out. There may be some restrictions to travel and things like that because of road closures and things like that. So this is really for after the storm we're planning for here. We'll go over what you need to know for during the storm as well, but a lot of this is for after the storm. All right, so make our hurricane plan. What is our hurricane plan? Right now it means to check our hurricane kit. At day 5, we check our hurricane kit. I have flashlights. Well, we'll go through that. So what's in our hurricane kit? We have working flashlights. The reason I say working is because I have checked my flashlight and found out that for some reason it was dead. The batteries had gone out or something like that. So that's one of the things that we're going to do is check your flashlights, batteries, and a way to charge your phone. Because what usually happens is that the phone system, especially after we went through 2004 and 2005, was reinforced to withstand long power outages. Many cellular stations have long-term battery backups, and some even have generators. So make sure you have your phone and a way to charge it. because we're planning here for power outages. That's kind of the most common thing with a tropical storm or a hurricane for the largest area. Most folks will experience power outages, and then after that we could get into what we would call more specific things that we prepare for damage and things like that. Battery powered AM and FM radio. You know, if your power goes out and your Wi-Fi is on house power, your router, and it goes out, then you don't have Wi-Fi, you don't have internet connection. So then you would have to be on cellular service, the internet that your phone gets. And so it's good to have a battery-powered AM or FM radio, because I may be on radio. We'll see if this gets really bad and we're in wall-to-wall coverage, and I'll tell you where to tune. But if not, then you don't want to run down your phone watching coverage, right? You want to kind of have a way to charge your phone. First aid kit. First aid kit's important because we find that after a big hurricane event, and I'm not saying this is going to be one, but we find after a big hurricane event, there can be injuries and things like that. After a big hurricane has departed, my first thing to say, and I said this during Irma, we said this in 04 and 05 as well, don't get hurt, okay? Don't get hurt, because after a storm does damage and things like that, there's debris, there's power, could be energized power lines. You just want to be careful. A large fatality maker, unfortunately, after storms is carbon monoxide poisoning from improper generator use. I have 3 carbon monoxide detectors, and I always make sure they're working if I'm running a generator. Carbon monoxide detectors in the house. The generator, of course, is outside the house, but you have to be just super, super careful. All right, non-perishable food, plastic plates, cups, and utensils. Kind of makes sense, huh? If you don't have power, you kind of going to be eating light. It's almost like you're going on an extended camping trip that you didn't choose to go on. So that's the way to think of that. Now, as we go into the weekend here, I think we're going to do a few tests for those of you who have younger kids. When my son was younger, we do, okay, let's pretend the power's out, so that they knew, and we do this at night, of course, so they knew kind of what to expect, so it wasn't quite as scary, right? And you want to make sure everybody on your family plan is all on the same page as well. So what should we be doing now? Once again, we have our hurricane plan, we've checked our hurricane kit. At this point, I would say make sure your gas tank is half full. Now, this kind of creates this, you know, everybody goes to the gas station, fills up, and starts filling up containers and stuff like that. And let me say the thing on containers. Please, please, please use approved containers. We've seen some crazy stuff in Florida where people are literally filling up bags because they're so desperate to get gasoline. Make sure it's an approved container. And then the recommendation, and I heard this from Miami-Dade Fire, I think this is still current and relevant, but no more than 20 gallons. So that's 4 5-gallon jugs of fuel there. And their recommendation, I don't know how many people have like a separate outbuilding, but their recommendation is to store it remotely, not in your home. I put my gas kind of like right next to the garage door so that it's not close to the house. If it leaks, hopefully the liquid fuel would go out from the house. Stay up to date on the tropical system, which means I'm going to be providing lots of updates, and you're going to want to know as well. And once again, don't get kind of lulled into it. Let me show the cone one more time, because I really want to emphasize this. It's our 5-day point here, so this is going to shift a little bit. And remember, what we're concentrating on is that yellow and red areas. Those are the areas where the possibility of tropical storm and hurricane conditions exist right now. That's going to change over time, but it really doesn't matter if you're in or out of the cone. It's those yellow and red areas that you want to avoid, be aware of there if you're in or out of it. And as I just said a second ago, talk to your family about what's going on. You know, it's a stressful situation. I've been through lots and lots of hurricanes here in South Florida, and it's never fun. It can be a little bit exciting in a nervous kind of way, but it's never fun, and you kind of have to go with it and realize it is very, very stressful. All right, so that basically is what is going on. Let me pop up the cone one more time, and for those of you who kind of joined late, let me back up the cone here, and we'll just do the whole advisory again from the beginning. So The big news this morning is that Tropical Depression 9 has formed in the southeast Caribbean there, just north of the ABC Islands, and it's about 615 miles to the east-southeast of Jamaica. It is moving to the west-northwest at 13. It is forecast to be near Jamaica on Sunday. That's the Sunday afternoon time frame there. And the yellow area indicates the possibility of tropical storm conditions. There are no watches or warnings in effect right now. Those go up, watches go up 48 hours in advance of the expectation of tropical storm winds. So even in a hurricane watch or warning, that 36 or 48 hours is still based on the arrival of tropical storm winds, even if it's a hurricane warning, because when the tropical storm winds get here, we're done. We're not doing anything else outside. All the preparation stuff shuts down. All right, so there once again is the forecast track, and you can see that's the Monday night position over Cuba and the Tuesday night position, the center right now in the forecast off the west coast. But as you can see from that yellow area, that's the tropical storm condition possibility, and that red area is the hurricane condition possibility. Now, what's going to happen is as we go forward into time here, the yellow and red areas will become more defined. So we will know which side of the system is expected to be most intense, things like that. Right now, we just kind of have a general idea that we're under the threat, and there's that possibility, but we will start talking about which side is most intense, and that will be coming up in the coming days. That's something that's still a little bit too far to talk about. So let's kind of talk about that timeline thing there, and I call this my my threat and prep timeline funnel, because of course we want to know where is the storm going and when do I prepare, and I already told you about what we should be doing now. And here's kind of this timeline. So we're now at 5 days and we're just about into 4 days. So of course when it was 7 days away, we were just saying, is it a threat to anyone, right? And then at 5 days we started thinking, is it a threat to Florida? We know it's a threat to Florida now. There's no doubt that it's not a threat to Florida. 4 days, is it a threat to Central and South Florida? Because we're getting into that 4 day time frame, and the answer there is yes. So going forward, we'll be able to break down more. Is it a threat to South Florida? Does it remain a threat to South Florida? By 2 days, we can break it down more and talk about specifics in terms of counties. So if I don't talk about you in the Keys, I'm thinking about you. And when I say South Florida, I mean everybody. Keys, Collier, mainland Monroe, as well as Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, and areas to the north. I'm even thinking about the Tampa Bay area. I have family there, and I have a lot of good friends in Fort Myers as well, and Naples. So thinking about everybody, and if I just don't mention specifics at this point, it's because it's too early really to talk about specifics. Now, when we get into the warnings time frame, that's when we can start talking about the specifics. We talk about when the winds are going to arrive, when the outer bands are going to arrive, things like that. But that's still several days away. That's probably not until Monday that we're going to be talking in that much detail. And then when it's 24 hours away, we start talking about the highest threats to localities, and then maybe even more specifics to that. And by the time we get to about 12 hours away, we're watching it on the radar pretty closely, so we have minute by minute information, and that's where we'll give you the updates. And then by the time we get into like the 6 hour time frame, we'll know where the core is and is it a threat specifically to you. So we went from keeping an eye on it to thinking about a hurricane event to now we're topping off our hurricane supplies, because we don't want to get behind this curve. This is something we want to do ahead of time, because and I know a lot of folks, they're out there, maybe you're one of them, they're like, well, it's still over on the West Coast, I think I'm going to wait. What we do with our hurricane planning is it's kind of incremental. It's not all at once, and we can pause it at any time. So we plan, get a little more activity done, and get a little more activity done, and then if we say, oh, it looks like it's shifting, and now it is shifting, then we can relax on the planning or pause our planning. So it's possible we could pause our planning, but right now we're in the topping off the hurricane kit that I showed you and the supplies. And then if we get into 3 days, that's the personal preparations, that's cash and medicine. If we get into 2 days, that's the home and boat preparations. Now 2 days is going to be Sunday. I know a lot of folks are going to be watching the Dolphins, Bills versus the Finns on Sunday. So you know what? Maybe it's one of those things where when the Finns are way up, sorry, Bills fans, when the Finns are way up, you do some things in the house. But by Sunday, we kind of want to really, if it's still coming, have our home and boat preparations done. And there's nothing wrong with doing that Saturday as well. And then as we get into the Monday thing, that's when the warnings are issued. And so that might be Monday morning where we still have a window of opportunity. Now, if this speeds up, that changes everything. But Monday might be our last day for a window of opportunity for preparations. That's when the warnings are issued. And then when we get into the Monday night time frame and maybe even Tuesday time frame, that's the indoor preparations. That's when I pre-place a flashlights around the house so that if the power goes out and it's dark, I know where to go and find the flashlight. 12 hours away, that's when we're sheltering in place. Basically from 24 to 12 hours, we're off the roads, we're staying home, we're ready to ride it out. And then in 6 hours, that's kind of when we get into our hunker down mode. That's when we're thinking about the possibility also of tornado warnings, things like that. Our shutters are up and we're in the interior of our home in the hunker down place. And if we get there, we'll talk about it ahead of time. So I want to stress this is not like a freak out type of thing. It's kind of a marathon, unfortunately. It's not a sprint. You kind of have to pace yourself. You don't want to get exhausted. You want to just go slow, and if you do things early, then it's not that bad. It's bad, of course, but it's not as bad. All right. And what happens if we don't have a plan? Well, people just get in their car and leave. And you know what happens on the Turnpike and I-95 and 75 and stuff like that when people leave. And because a good part of the Central and South Florida Peninsula are potentially going to be impacted by this, you would have to go pretty far, and nobody wants to do that. So the main point, the main takeaway this morning is to have a plan, right? And be ready to go. And let me show you one more look at that cone because that woke everybody up this morning. I woke up before. I guess I just had that spidey sense that advisors are going to be issued. So once again, we will be keeping track. I will have an update this afternoon. We'll talk more details and talk about what's going on. And until then, stay tuned.